everybody. Welcome to Camel City Chat. I'm John McPherson, and I'm here with my guest who has known me for a couple years, and I hope does not pull out any stories. B. Tom Lawson Jr.
Yes.
Yes.
Correct.
And Tom and I have known each other since the 80s. So I started at Appalachian in 86, so I met you in late 86, I guess.
That's correct. When you were a freshman.
When I was a freshman. And you were
effervescent freshman, I might add.
Full of energy.
Yes.
Full of energy.
You were full of it then.
Yes, full
Still
of it.
are, by the way.
Thank you. So, Tom, welcome to Camel City Chat. We're going to do the usual stuff and then get into some stuff because you, of course, are the person that introduced me to Ronald McDonald House. And, of course, we had Chuck on the show last week. But you're also a person that I have a deep amount of respect for you. Not only believe in giving back and contributing, you are just a volunteer for everything and so love community. I do appreciate the fronting the product there of the 3-3-3. 3 national champions, 3,300 feet above sea level.
Correct.
Great school. I'm not going to ask you where you go, but you're going to tell me anyway.
Yep.
Yeah. So, where are you from, and how long have you been in Winston-Salem?
Well, John, I am actually from a place that no longer exists anymore. I was born in a town called Leaksville, which in 1968 consolidated with Spray and Draper to form a town that is now known as Eden. So I was born in Rockingham County, about 10 miles from the Virginia line, and I grew up in Eden. And I've lived in Winston-Salem with my wife, Megan, for it to be 26 years this December.
Okay, so I'm 68, so I was born in 68, so you're born what, 60 what?
60. I'm a 1960 model.
All right, so 8 years old, your town doesn't exist anymore. That's got to be weird.
It is weird. You know, the joke in at least our hometown was any area whose initials were LSD in the 60s had to change their name. And there happened to be a surveyor named William Byrd, an Englishman who came through our area in the 1700s. Right. There were two rivers that converged in this area, the Smith and the Dan. And Byrd said, surely this must be the land of Eden.
Right.
So when the three little towns consolidated in 1968, it was renamed Eden.
That's pretty cool.
It's a great place to be from. I love growing up there.
Yeah, and there's some stories about actually in college about some people coming and talking to you and different things that because I'd shouted you out with Chuck about a new award that you just got, which of course you could care less about awards, but you can't believe that you got it, so we'll talk about that. And Megan, of course, everyone pronounces her name correctly always.
She has I've been married to Megan Carrier Lawson for just over 35 years.
Right.
And Megan is such a unique name. Everybody calls her Megan. Mm-hmm. And she's gotten to the point that she doesn't correct anybody anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So you're from Eden. You've been in Winston-Salem a bunch of years. Now, when you go out with Megan, what's your favorite place to eat?
Gosh, that's hard. It's hard to answer because I don't want to offend anybody, and plus there's so many great places in town. I'd give you three quick answers. We love our neighborhood restaurant, River Birch.
Okay.
Eddie Shapiro, who runs it, who's an Appalachian guy, fantastic. We love to go in there. It's our cheers, so to speak. If we're going out for a nicer meal, my favorite, I'm not sure Megan might agree, is Moselle's.
Yep.
And if I'm going for breakfast, I'm going to go by Duke's, which is my favorite go-to.
Yeah, Duke's is awesome. Yeah, so you're over in the Sherwood Forest area.
Correct.
So with being out in Clemens, Duke's is not that hard of a hit. I also will hit the Liberty sometimes in the morning coming in because it's not that far. But no, the mayor's answer was there's so many wonderful restaurants I can't name. So we came up with a new question. But backup is, where's the last place you went out to dinner? And then it's like,
And by the way, full disclosure, I think Megan would say Olive Tree. She loves going there to have lunch after church on Sunday.
So I went to McGinnis, and Sister Dennis is painted on the wall in Olive Tree.
I always wondered who that was.
Okay, so that's Sister Dennis, and she... Oh, God, I don't know. I mean, she must have been when I got to McGinnis, she was probably in her 70s or 80s. I mean, she's just great lady, just tiny lady, and so it's the sweetest
I understand
person in the world.
tiny.
Yeah, so it's not tiny; it's vertically challenged. What about what are your favorite things to do around here?
Gosh, we really enjoy going downtown.
Okay.
There's so much to see and do.
And we're going to touch on that because did you ever think you'd say that?
No,
Yeah.
quite frankly, 26 years later, almost 26 years later, I'm stunned by it. We even have considered moving downtown, but
Right.
we love downtown in general. We really have gotten into hiking
Okay.
during COVID. And there's so many trails all over, not only in Forsyth County, but outside the county nearby. Love doing that. And quite frankly, I'm a college sports nut. I love
Really?
watching college sports.
Do you have a favorite team?
Because I went to Appalachian, I worked there. Our kids were born in Boone. I met my wife there.
Yeah.
Appalachian's kind of our favorite.
Yeah, no, it's.
I know.
Yeah,
I know.
yeah, you saw that, didn't you?
I know.
Yeah. No, it's interesting as our friends' kids are getting ready to go college age, and they're saying, "Where do you think about going?" I talked to a buddy of mine's daughter 2 days ago, and she's like, "Well, I'm looking at State, I'm looking at Carolina, I'm looking at Virginia, I'm looking at LSU, I'm looking at Appalachian." And I'm like, "Oh, really? Well, you know where I'm going to tell you to go." But
Good for you.
Yeah, well, but the thing about Appalachian is that a lot of people don't realize is, when we were there, it was like, oh, there's, tree huggers or whatever. I mean, there's just diversity is Appalachian. When I was at Appalachian, there wasn't, you just went to school with people. It wasn't like that there was a group here, a group here, a group here. It was just everybody was there, and we had a great time. And you were, you weren't stranded in Boone because there was so much stuff to do. But I'm embarrassed now because we have a place up there now, and my wife's like, "Would you do this when you were in college?" No, I didn't do that when I was in college. I went to Holly's a couple times over in Blowing Rock, and you drive by now, it's like, oh yeah, but I didn't do the hiking thing or stuff like that. We went on a phenomenal hike. I have to look it up and tell you what it is, but I think it was Roan Mountain over in, is it Tennessee that we went into? And have you done that hike?
Yes, we have.
All right, so you park there at Carver's Gap, right?
And then you can go either way.
Oh my gosh.
It is magnificent.
So we did Carver's Gap. We went across the street. You got to take a picture of the thing with the North Carolina sign in the background. You hike up the hill, and you're up on top of that, and then you can keep on going to the next one, and the next one, and the next one. So I'm like, well, this is really pretty. Let's go home now. And
it's easy to get worn out.
Yeah.
And the Appalachian Trail, the AT, is close to us. And then there's this wonderful trail system that runs literally from the Tennessee line to the Outer Banks.
Right, the Mountains to Sea Trail. Have you been doing that?
We have been doing Mountains to Sea. We discovered it in the last couple of years. We've now are financial supporters of it.
Okay.
We really believe in it. And I would encourage anybody to take a look at Mountains to Sea Trail for great little hikes all over our state.
So if you go in Great Outdoors or over in Greensboro, at REI, they've got some Mountain to Sea books, but you can also just go on their website and make a contribution. I've been looking at it. We have our state realtor convention in Cherokee this year.
Perfect.
So it's like, do we want to run up and start? Because what a... Hank Perkins, who my fraternity brother, who used to be town manager of Louisville, who's now down at Lake Lure, he's doing the Appalachian Trail. And he's got a buddy, they go, park the car here, drive, and whatever. And they're getting down to the end. But they've been working on it 10 or 15 years. I don't see myself ever hiking the Appalachian Trail, but the Mountain to Sea is achievable.
It is achievable, all skill levels.
Right.
When you go to the website, you can actually look for specific trails. It will show you the topography, so you know whether you start at the uphill and go downhill or whether it's going to be steep or not. And again, I would just so encourage it. It is literally right beside us.
Right.
And you can be on a Mountains to Sea trail through Pilot Mountain, at Hanging Rock, Guilford County, or anywhere in the Western Mountains.
Cool. Yeah. And it is fun, and you are getting out and stuff like that. One thing that we have not talked about, I know you love Megan, but you do have two wonderful kids.
Correct.
And that's how I met you, is because When was Will born? What year?
Our oldest son, Will, who was born in 1991, was a little impatient and decided to come 4 weeks early. We were living in Boone at the time, and he was having some respiratory challenges. And the helicopter from Brenner Children's Hospital flew up to Watauga County and got him,
Right.
flew him back, and he actually spent time at Brenner Children's Hospital where a host of doctors took care of him.
And so when was he born in 91?
His birth date is November 14th, 1991.
Okay, so I graduated in May of 91, and then I would have seen you probably at an event. And, you know, when you meet Tom or when you meet Megan, they are the most loving, kind people. It's always, hey, how are you? The first question you ask me is, hey, John, how are you? And then before I even get an answer out, all you ask is, how's your dad doing? And, of course, now it's, how's Laura or my wife?
Yeah.
But I remember seeing you, and I saw a different Tom. I mean, you were concerned. I think I'd come back for maybe a fraternity thing, and you were still involved in different stuff with your fraternity. And you started to tell me a story about how, you know, I'm like, you know, is there anything you can do or, you know, whatever? And you're like, well, you know, honestly, we've got this great place. And you have been involved with them since 1991. And, you know, we just talked to Chuck about it, but please share with how much that changed you and your wife's life.
Yeah, that night that Will flew down here, I drove down. Megan was not able to come until the next day, and I actually stayed at a hotel over by the hospital. And when I came into the Brenner NICU unit, and gosh, we are 3 iterations beyond the NICU unit that Will was in. It's phenomenal what they do at Brenner. They said, you need to stay at, you need a place to stay, you need to go to Ronald McDonald House. And quite honestly, I thought that Ronald McDonald House was only for people that literally couldn't afford to be anywhere else. And as I walked across the street, and they warmly greeted me, and they said, you can stay here as many nights as you need. It's $5 a night, give as you're able.
Well, you know, they've raised it to 10 now.
I know. And that has led to a 31-year love affair with Ronald McDonald House. And Megan's been involved, chaired the Luminary campaign. I've been on the board, been involved in the capital campaign for the last edition they did. It's just truly one of the most important charitable organizations in our city. And I would also add one of the best run.
And, you know, it's really funny, and I actually did not say this to Chuck. I forgot to. We knew each other from Smart Start, and someone that we knew has actually passed away, a younger lady that was involved with Smart Start, and I just was shocked she got COVID. It was something I didn't have a chance to talk to him about that. But you know me, I have ADD. But I'm getting to my point, and that is Chuck and Mindy, are they not like a perfect combination?
They're unbelievable. And quite frankly, Chuck replaced a legend in Anita Ogburn.
I mean, it was
who, as you know, ran Ronald McDonald for a long time, the most organized, efficient nonprofit executive I've ever had the chance to work with. And Chuck Kraft has now stepped in, and things haven't missed a beat. Mindy's perfect in her role, generous, thankful, encouraging in her own way. They're a perfect team.
And I will say, and we'll make sure we're good on this, but I will say this about Mindy. I don't get the same feeling that I get from other organizations that it's like, hey, would you, invest or whatever, and then you invest in it, and then a week later you get a mail in asking for more money or stuff like that.
Yeah.
Now, I know that if I see Mindy in public, she is going to shake me down, but it's not always the same shakedown. It's like, hey, John, will you do our breakfast or whatever? And then when you get around, it's like, hey, I'm writing a check right now, okay? So I saw her when I did the show last week, and I said, oh, by the way, I'll be glad to do the character breakfast. They've asked me to MC it a couple years. Obviously, they can't get anybody.
Yeah.
But
you're the closest thing to a cartoon character they can
get. Thank you. That's exactly it.
Which is nice.
And then, but then it's like, I owe you a check. I know that. Because what I started doing with Angela and Wendy, when we started MKT, we started doing we're going to give an amount of money for every closing we do. Now, since then, they've left, and I changed it to this amount. I mean, it's insignificant comparatively. It's not even a full night's room, but it is a contribution, and it adds up. And, it was, honestly, I think it's $30, but I think that's what it used to be when I started for a room for the night. Now they're telling me it's like $60 or $80.
Yeah.
But it's the responses that I've gotten back have been crazy. I had a lady that had 12 or 13 kids. Her one of her daughters, it's actually Lisa Smith, who married Andy Berry.
Yep.
You remember Andy Berry?
Yep.
It's her mom's family was like, oh my gosh, we can't believe you did that. Then I had a buddy of mine, Chris Gunzenhauser. His wife's dad helped start Ronald McDonald with Willard Scott. And then so it's just a great organization to be involved with.
Yeah, and I would say one last thing about Mindy's work, and I've come to appreciate this, not working for a tax-exempt organization. We need the Mindys of the world for this reason. We get so caught up in doing what we do, raising kids, going to work, caring for aging parents, etc., that we forget sometimes about the importance of our sharing our resources with others. And Mindy and her peers remind us to be generous. And I've come to respect that role even more being a volunteer and living in Winston-Salem than I think I probably even realized when I used to be a staff member and doing that work.
Completely agree with that. And I think that what we need to do now is, since I've monopolized this with Ronald McDonald House, but I know you love it, is let's go back to, so your mom starts getting visited by a young man in your town or something. What is this?
Yeah.
So you go to Appalachian. What's your major at App?
I was a history major, and unlike most of my fraternity brothers who were Walker College of Business majors, I loved history. I'd had a fantastic history teacher at Moorhead High School in Eden named Bill Carter, and I just enjoyed it, and I really liked my history teacher, and that's where I headed.
Okay. All right, so then you go to Appalachian, and tell me about, is fraternity one of the best things that ever happened to you in your life?
Yeah, and I know for many people that will listen to this
my gosh,
and
you paid
see
for your
this,
friends or whatever.
We'll have visions of Animal House and other things that maybe are not so positive.
Yeah, you're talking about your fraternity, not mine.
Yeah, but I come from a divorced home, and I'm an only child. And when I went to Appalachian, I was fortunate enough to have gotten an invitation in a very roundabout way from a guy that had graduated from Reedsville, our rival high school.
Right.
Guy did that. And I went to a party that night, and I liked the guys, I liked what I thought it stood for, and I joined. Quite frankly, I had no idea what I've gotten into. I'm the first person in my family to go to college. No one had been in a fraternal organization. It just was something I didn't know much about. But there seemed to be a sense of family, of a group of men trying to do service together, play intramurals together, which I enjoyed a lot. Certainly there was the social part. But as I came to find out, all fraternal organizations in the traditional fraternity and sorority, the letters stand for a profound phrase that typically is related to our faith. They're Jewish organizations that tie back to the Jewish faith, but the fraternities and sororities like the one you were a member of in college and myself, their Greek letters, in my case Lambda, Chi, and Alpha, are code for a profound phrase that was a pretty good guide for me then and is now too.
And interestingly now, so your fraternity, I know, has very Christian roots. Mm-hmm. My fraternity, I don't know if you knew this, is law books of old, basically. So Delta Chi was a legal fraternity. The coolest thing I ever did was go back.
As was Lambda Chi.
Okay.
Started with a bunch of law students.
Okay. So I go back to Cornell, and all my friends that are 1906 Alpha Phi Alphas. This is 1890 Cornell. So I go back to Cornell, see the initiation, and I'm a Mason as well. Uh-huh. And it's like, oh, I know what you guys were doing before you were in a fraternity.
Yes.
So, a lot of
Yes.
the rituals are the same. I mean, basically, everything it works back to friendship, your morality, your treating of other people, and things like that. But I think the thing that people don't realize about fraternities is what positions they put you in. I would have never thought that graduating from Bishop McGinnis that I'd go and be president of IFC at Appalachian, or a student court justice, or things like that. I mean, you go on to work for the National Fraternity, you come back to work at the university, but when Greg came on as Vice Chancellor of Student Affairs, I was appointed by the Chancellor to be on the selection committee. Yeah. That wasn't because I was a student walking down the hallway, that was because they saw that we were involved.
Yes, absolutely.
And even as a history major, because remember I was communications, which is even easier to get out of, I feel like that you will tell me this, you learn more through your fraternity interactions and stuff like that than you ever learned in college.
Yeah, the undergraduate experience at Appalachian was tremendous. Student teaching and taking other classes that really helped me be better and more comfortable in public speaking roles were enormously helpful. But in the out-of-classroom experience, and I'll give you an example. I had a conversation yesterday with a man that I've known for 44 years. And we have done projects together to try to help other people. I've stood in his wedding. He's stood in our wedding. We've laughed and cried together when our families have struggled at times. And that friendship was forged when we joined together in August of 1978. Mm-hmm. And I could tell you tons of stories of that, of friendships and business relationships and support that I've gotten from not only the men that I was in the group with, men that came afterwards, but also men and women from other groups like yourself and others. It is an amazing network, but it really changed the trajectory of my life and showed me there might be something bigger for me. And that path of encouragement, I am very appreciative of.
And we're going to take a break because we have to hear about that, because I think that I want you to tell what you thought you were going to do and then kind of where we are now. Okay? So we're going to be right back with more Camel City Chat. Welcome back, everybody, to Camel City Chat. I'm here with my guest, B. Tom Lawson Jr. There is a reason why I specifically call him B. He does not know that, but I'm getting to the bottom of this. I've known you since 1986. So when did you work for Lambda Chi International?
I graduated from Appalachian in 82.
Right.
I worked for Lambda Chi 82 to 84.
Right.
Then I went to grad school from 84 to 85 at Appalachian. Then I worked at North Carolina State University. Then I came back to Appalachian and I worked there from 1986 to 1996.
Okay, so that's when I met you. Okay, so I know two Tom Lawsons. So whenever I refer to you, I always say B. Tom Lawson, because then everybody knows who I'm talking about. So I'm assuming B is for a first name.
Yes, I am named for my dad, Ben Thomas Lawson, and I am Ben Thomas Lawson Jr.
Right.
I guess the decision was made that I would go by my middle name,
Tommy.
Tom. And if you know me prior to 1982, you know me as Tommy. After 1982, my professional name was Tom. But I know what you're talking about. There are 3 Tom Lawsons in Forsyth County that I'm aware of.
Okay.
One of them was the mayor of Louisville.
Who's the Tom Lawson I know.
Correct.
Right, yeah.
And the joke got to be whenever he ran for office, I had friends that grabbed some of his signs and put them in my yard. So I would get calls, "You're running for office?" I said, "Look at the sign. We don't live in Louisville. I can't run for mayor there." But
right. Yep.
and then there's another one who I have not met.
So Tom Lawson's married to Edith. Edith has 2 sisters. I've worked with them. They're great folks. And when they sold their mom's place, Tom has 2 boys. One of them works is, I believe, an assistant manager at Lowe's and is moving up the chain. The other son is a gamer.
Really?
Yes, a professional gamer.
Wow.
And so, but Tom's Great guy. We were on planning board together when I first started getting into some politics and things. But it's always, I got to give Tom Lawson a call. Tom Lawson, so or whatever. Because I've called you throughout the years with talking about different things. And
absolutely,
you have been involved in many, many organizations since you've been here. Besides your charitable work, when you left Boone, when did you come to Winston to actually work, and what was your first job here?
We moved here the week before Christmas in 1996.
Right.
Literally the last thing they put on the moving truck was the Christmas tree.
Okay.
We came down and we were here a week before Christmas, and then January 2nd, I began working for the Winston-Salem Foundation, who I know many of your listeners and viewers will know as the community foundation here in town.
So, and I want to talk about that because I know that is something also still near and dear to your heart. I believe the Realtors Association has our charitable fund at that. So, what were you going to be a history teacher? Is that what you wanted to be?
No, it's funny in spring 1982, I had an application in for the Peace Corps, and I had an application in for working for Lambda Chi Alpha.
And we got to talk about the travel stuff on the other two.
Yeah, and Lambda Chi Alpha called first, so I moved to Indianapolis, lived there for 2 years, and during the academic year, traveled and visited colleges and universities where we had chapters.
He was the guy from headquarters that no one wants to see.
Yeah. I tried to be as nice as I could be, but the cool thing about it for a guy from small town North Carolina was I visited 101 colleges and universities in 40 states and 3 Canadian provinces in 2 years. Completely opened my mind and view and thoughts about a lot of things.
And interpretation of fraternity is so different at each campus.
Correct.
Right.
Correct. Michigan is going to be different than Appalachian, and UCLA is going to be different than Rensselaer. Yeah, we'll come back. We come back to the Michigan thing later. It's the gift that keeps on giving.
Yeah, I know. And my doctor goes, so you kissed the girl, so you kissed the prom queen. Who cares? I married her.
Yeah,
that's what he says.
Yeah,
and we're still going to talk about it. So you traveled around, and this is actually something that I was going to ask you. So this is a good tie-in here. I know that you love Appalachian sports. I know that you travel a lot with Appalachian sports. You were at the game, correct?
Yeah,
you were at the Michigan game, right?
I've been fortunate enough to be at almost all the major games we've played.
So
the national championship games, the game in Ann Arbor when we beat Michigan, and what is considered maybe to be the all-time upset in college football.
It is the greatest.
Bowl games, Penn State, LSU, been a lot of places.
Evacuating from the hurricane after the game.
Correct.
So I guess we were driving yesterday and we drove by this church. We were going out to Hiddenite Mine, and there's this church called The Rock, and Catherine goes, "Welcome to The Rock." I'm like, but it's not that far away.
Start them early.
So what? This is my wife though. That was even better.
Start them early.
What has been a place that you've traveled to that you just had a great experience? What's your best stadium? We know Appalachian's answer to every question, but what's your favorite stadium that you've been to?
And if Megan listens to this, she'll think this is a loaded answer, but I really mean it. At Tiger Stadium in Baton Rouge is the best place to watch a college football game outside of the Rock in Boone, any place in America. We have been there.
We have, yep.
When LSU scored in the last minute of a game to beat Auburn 7-6.
Oh my gosh.
And the crowd reaction was so enormous that Monday in the geology department, when they came in, they have a seismograph that goes on all the time.
Right.
And they went, oh my gosh, we had an earthquake last Saturday. What happened? Mm-hmm. And they went back, and when the guy scored the touchdown, it registered as a minor earthquake in Baton Rouge.
One of my dad's friends is responsible for one of the poles in the tiger enclosure.
Really?
So you imagine how much he paid for that.
Oh, my goodness.
So
Crazy people.
Yeah, right. So LSU is beautiful.
Yep. University of Washington in Seattle. Magnificent stadium.
Have you been to Notre Dame?
I have not been to Notre Dame.
That's
it's a bucket list place for me. I am going to go to Texas A&M this fall.
That'll be good.
I'm very anxious and interested to go there. I've been to Florida, Virginia Tech, Penn State was truly a beautiful spot, kind of in a mountainous area of south central Pennsylvania. Surprisingly nice fans. Sometimes home fans can be a little brutal.
Michigan were some of the nicest people I've ever met.
They were really, really nice.
I would add, I have not been here for a stadium. I went there when I was in Appalachian for a class. I would say Tennessee's probably a pretty good stadium. But, both Clemson and South Carolina are great. I mean, Williams-Brice, I was there when if it ain't swaying, we ain't playing.
Absolutely.
They've made some changes.
Our oldest son and daughter-in-law both went to South Carolina, as did her mom and dad. And so we've been in a lot of games in Williams-Brice also.
Yeah, it's a nice stadium. All right, so traveling for the fraternity, obviously a great experience, opened a bunch of eyes, and then you come back and what happened to get us to, Appalachian? We get down here. What do you do in your job for the foundation, and more importantly, what is the Winston-Salem Foundation for people that don't know?
Yeah. The Winston-Salem Foundation is one of the best assets this community has. It is a community foundation which is basically a public charity that does a lot of different things. Mm-hmm. It holds charitable funds like your Realtors Fund. It provides donor advised fund support for individuals and families that want to use it. It runs a competitive student aid program, so it provides grants for kids to go to college and loans also. And it is a competitive grant maker, meaning charities can come to the foundation on their annual schedule and apply for grants and get grant support. At year-end last year, our total assets were somewhere between $700 and $800 million. It's been here since 1919. And I worked for it for 5 years, but the most humbling part is I actually got asked to serve in January on the board of the Winston-Salem Foundation.
Right.
So now I've come full circle from having served as a staff member to serving as a board. And I would encourage anybody that's listening to this, just Google wsfoundation.org and take a look at all the things it can do and just consider what your role might be in this community.
So if you're telling me 1919, I'm going to take a guess there were probably 2 families that started the seed money for that.
Yep.
Reynolds and Haynes probably. All right, and then now obviously the McPhersons don't have that kind of money, but I mean you can start whatever, but so if I wanted to like people have foundations and you can make contributions to their foundations or things like that, but I mean there is I'm passing away and I'm leaving $50 million to the Winston-Salem Foundation, let's say, and then you can direct kind of what you want to do.
Yeah, here's the beauty of it. Let's say that your passion is helping young people go to college.
Right.
You literally could make a gift during lifetime or at death, or a combination. You could start it in lifetime and add to it in your estate to build a fund that a distribution would be made annually to help a young person go to college. That's an example. You could leave a fund behind and say to the Winston-Salem Foundation board and staff, I don't know what Winston-Salem is going to look like 25 years from now.
Right.
I'm going to give you discretion to apply a distribution annually to the needs of our community. And that's a real priority for the foundation right now, is to build out some discretionary money because the world has changed so quickly, and particularly over the history of the Winston-Salem Foundation. But the beauty of the Community Foundation model, which we have here through our own Winston-Salem Foundation, is literally everyone can be a philanthropist. Mm-hmm. And I'll give you an example. Our Sunday school class has had a donor advised fund at the Winston-Salem Foundation, where we literally took up the collection, deposited it, it was held, and at future points we'd made distributions to charities that were important to us.
That's
so
interesting.
It's a big tent where a lot of people can be philanthropists.
So my wife has a dream of a foundation, and she has something that she's always thought about. And so, are you telling me that we could say, all right, so we're going to give $1,000 a year for a period of time until we grow the principal up, and then we can start to say, hey, do this with that or whatever?
Yeah, when you think about setting money aside for future giving, a lot of people will just generically use the phrase foundation. And a foundation is a structure that's available but can be cost prohibitive. And there's another structure you might consider called a donor advised fund. You take that $1,000, you set it aside, you can let it grow, you can add to it, and you can make distributions when you choose. So you literally could have a donor advised fund at the Winston-Salem Foundation with a gift of $1,000.
Okay.
And then there are ones clearly that are in the millions, but my wife and I, for example, have used a donor advised fund personally for the last 20 years. And we set money aside, so we use it to manage our annual giving, but our goal is to give it to Will and Charlie when we pass away, so they'll have a resource to supplement what they give personally.
Right. And so I can go, this year I'm going to give $5,000 to charity. I can send it to a donor advised fund, and then I can say, give Ronald McDonald House this, give Appalachian this, give that. And so then but then you're growing across the whole principle rather than.
Correct.
Yeah. And you do it on you do it December 31st.
And the key, and you can. You
right.
literally can take a check over on that day.
Right.
The key thing to think about is define what generosity means to you this year. Take a look at your income, your expenses, your commitments, and let's just say that you've decided, okay, we've been giving 4% of our pre-tax income. We'd like to move that to 5%. Whatever that number is, doesn't really matter.
Right.
Then you would take that amount of money and you would give it to the donor advised fund. You receive a charitable income tax deduction because the foundation's a public charity.
Right.
You now have a pool of assets that you decide when and how you distribute the money. Now there's some nuance around what the IRS allows you to support and what you can't support, but in general that's the way the concept works.
Okay, interesting. And that's one of the main reasons why I wanted to have you here is because of your involvement. I think that as we move into the next segment here in a minute, I want to touch on what you're doing now, but then I want to come back and I want to touch on how people should get involved and identify charities and things like that, because I think that's really big that you're such an expert on, and then also talk about some more Winston-Salem stuff. So you work for you went private,
Yeah, as my tax exempt friends say, I went to the dark side.
Right.
20 years ago, and you got to remember, I've never worked to this point for a for-profit entity. Right. And then I go work with one of the largest corporations in the world. So if you're going to make a change, just go big, right?
Yeah, so you're in wealth management at a bank,
right?
And basically I did pretty good there, didn't I? So
Very nice.
what can you tell us about what you do now? Because obviously there's I'm not putting your number at the bottom of the screen. I'm not doing that. I mean, we're not marketing you as that, but you basically help. Do you help other corporations do what?
Yeah, John, I've got, I think, the coolest gig in a company that has a lot of people that work for it. My job primarily is to help financial advisors and to help their clients give more effectively and efficiently, literally to ask the charitable question. So if you were our client, the financial advisor would say to you, now, John, we've talked about your portfolio, your documents are set up in case something happens to you, God forbid, but we've not talked about your charitable giving. And how might we be able to help you give more effectively? And you might go, what does that mean? Well, for example, it's more effective to give away publicly traded stock that you've held for more than a year than it is to give away cash. There is a possibility if you're a business owner formed in LLC form, you could give away a portion of your company before you sold it. And those charitable strategies, quite frankly, John, most people just aren't aware of. So my encouragement is to people that are primarily in the money management business to simply put the word philanthropy on the agenda and to say to their client, beyond helping you manage assets, I want to help you figure out how you can give more effectively.
All right, so I'm going to Frank the Tank here and ask you a question from old school when you went up against Carvel. So basically, I have a stock. I'm looking around the room. That's Disney, okay?
Okay.
So I got a basis of $25 in Disney. It's a value at $100 a share now. If I go to sell it, I've got a basis of 25, so I'm paying $75
Capital gains.
capital gains. I get the, I basically, am going to pay taxes on $75. So I really only made like $30 besides my basis or something like that. So what you're telling me is I can then say to Ronald McDonald House, here's a share of Disney, and I get credit for the $100, and I deduct the whole $100, or do I?
I'm clearly a great teacher because you're very close. So here's the general philosophy.
Hold on, wait, I got to do that.
Here's the general
Where was I?
philosophy.
Yeah.
You bought Disney at $25
Right.
a share. You have held it for 366 days or longer. At that point, it's now categorized as long-term capital gain property. If the price of the shares were $100 a share, you're right. If you sell it after you've held it for more than that, you're going to pay long-term capital gains on the gain, the 25 to 100. If you instead give that stock to a public charity, Ronald McDonald House, the Winston-Salem Foundation, your donor advised fund, Appalachian State University Foundation, etc., you get the fair market value deduction, $100, and you can deduct up to 30% of your adjusted gross income annually. So, in general, the best asset to give away during lifetime, if you're able to, is publicly traded stock held for more than a year in a taxable investment account for those reasons.
There's another one that you need to say too. Real estate.
Real estate, and as you know, in all seriousness, real estate has appreciated so much. Commercial, residential, developed, undeveloped. You can actually, if you think about it, real estate is just a long-term capital gain asset. Mm-hmm. If you've held it for more than a year, and it has no debt on it, which is critical. Debt on it messes up the deductibility and the transaction very often. You can transfer that with appropriate due diligence to a public charity.
Okay, cool. So I'm learning here.
Nice.
All right, we're going to take a break.
Okay.
We'll be right back and finish up with Tom Lawson. That's B. Tom Lawson. And we're going to hear about how to get involved in charities and how you picked your charities and things like that, and doing that inner what's my why type of stuff.
Yeah.
And I think that'll be a good lesson for all of us, okay?
Okay.
All right.
Sounds great.
We'll be right
Thank
back.
you.
Welcome back to Camel City Chat. I'm here with B. Tom Lawson, who we have been friends since 1986. Well, I don't know if you really would have considered me a friend. You just considered me a smart-ass freshman or something probably at that point. But
that would have been correct.
We've grown to friendships over the years. But Megan likes me. I do know that.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's
So I mean,
correct.
that's all that matters.
That's correct.
So we were talking about different things and stuff, and what I will say is the foundation also provides, because I want people to be involved, because no one cares how much you know until they know how much you care, and a needy world awaits your imprint. So that is one good thing that I took away from Bishop McGinnis.
Yep.
Come to the top of the stairs near the gym. It was on the door, and I always have remembered that quote. But there are many outlets. If I go to church, I can give to my church, and my church does some different things. And I want to come back to that with you specifically because I know you do some really cool mission work and things like that. But if I'm not in a church, I dump stuff. I'm moving my office. I took a bunch of stuff to Goodwill. There's Green Nest, which was started by some members of our church. But there's all kinds of charities out there. And you were saying, well, if I'm not a member of a church, but I want to still give, and I believe, what was the term that you use? How do I express my generosity? There it is. So how do I express my generosity, and not only financially, but I would say physically and helping out? I'm new in town, or I've got to get out of my house from the pandemic. I know it's a long question. If we were on Smart List, they'd be making fun of me. But how do I express my generosity? Because I feel like you're a professional at this. And what I mean by that is you've been involved with so many organizations that you know. So I want to do something, Tom. Tell me what I should do or how I figure out what to do.
John, it's a great question, and one that we all face. And it calls for an honesty with ourselves. Sometimes that's really hard, and I include myself in this. And what I would say to you is you say, I want to help other people. I would think about maybe 2 or 3 different key points here. One, generosity clearly includes the transfer of ownership of things you have.
Okay.
Gifts, charitable gifts, gifting kind, clothing, other items that you can transfer, and gosh, whether it's Habitat Restore or food pantries or clothing pantries in our city, there's lots of ways to transfer things you own, to recycle them for the good. Goodwill comes to mind also. And then the second thing is your time. What are you willing to allocate from your time? I'll give you an example. On the children's home property on Ronaldo Road, at the back of the property is a 2+ acre garden that's been in existence for well over 20 years. It was the dream of a guy named Jim Holmes, who ironically enough was a stockbroker and didn't know anything about growing anything. But he had a dream to try to feed hungry people in our community. And every growing season, from the spring through the early fall, people are out there every day, primarily though on Wednesday nights after work and Saturday mornings, tending the garden.
Pulling weeds.
Harvesting, pulling weeds, storing things, etc. And by the way, you don't have to know anything about gardening to go out there. It's great to be outside.
It's community.
It's community.
Right.
You see people, and the people come from all over. But to do that, what do you got to do, John? You got to leave work. You got to have your dirty clothes on. You got to go over to the garden. So you have to be willing to give up your most precious asset, even beyond your financial assets, your time. And those two things, generosity in terms of actually transferring ownership of something you own and the giving of your time, you have to sit back and say, what am I really willing to do?
Okay.
And I'll give you an example. Samaritan Ministries, which is one of the 4 homeless shelters in our community, during winter, COVID outbreak hit their staff, hit the residents of Samaritan, the guests, and all of a sudden a decision was made in the city to set up an isolation hotel out University Parkway out by 52. Well, there were as many as 70 people out there to begin with, and the numbers diminished over the weeks as people were able to leave. But every day, Samaritan needed somebody to drive over to the back at noon, pick up the lunches for those people at the isolation hotel, drive them over. Time, a car, having the ability to have something big enough to put these lunches in. And as I say this, the point I hope that everybody hears is, everybody can make an impact in the world. You don't have to have $1 billion. You don't have to sit on the board of an organization. Those things are nice and make a difference, but everybody can give their time. Or you can allocate a portion of your budget. Hey, I know my income this year is going to be X. I'm going to begin this year with the goal of giving away a certain amount of money. Same way we budget for savings or house down payments or other things. Have that charitable budget. And it's interesting, even though we live in a super generous country, tax code that promotes charitable giving, literally 1 million plus tax exempt organizations, the average American gives away plus or minus tax, pre or post tax, 2% of their income annually. And I would say to folks, just ponder where you are. So for some folks, you might be starting. For some folks, you might go back and look at your tax return and say, wow, I gave away 4% of my income last year. Might I give away more? And then figure out what good you might do, and most importantly, what's important to you.
Interesting. And, there are so many places you can get involved. Of course, you got to go by and see Tommy Priest and get a coffee before you go back over to the children's home.
Uh-huh.
And we have gone out there. My daughter went to Salem Montessori prior to going to Montessori school, Winston-Salem. And Michael Hastings' wife,
Yep.
Betty, she goes one night a week, every other week or something, feeds the animals.
Yes.
Yeah, and
yes.
so that was something
yes.
to do. I mean, it's just, but it is amazing. And stuff that you don't even know, like Southwest Elementary has a food pantry, and connecting people up and things like that. It's just there's so many different things. My dad's involved with the Clemens Food Pantry at Clemens United Methodist, but it's I wish that there may be. I wish there was like a central database of, hey, I want to be involved. Who needs help or something like that?
Yeah. I would say call the Winston-Salem Foundation. They're at the hub of a lot of things, and they can put you in contact. Certainly, if anybody has any questions, I'm more than willing to help guide folks. John, we live in a hurting world. There are people that are hungry. There are people that are unsure about tomorrow. We also live in a world that's cautious. We guard our privacy so much more than we ever have, for right reasons. But we also live in a world where people now understand in a broader way, and that's why I'm so optimistic about younger generations, is that they have the ability and the reason and the drive to try to help others. And I hope they will do in similar ways to their parents and grandparents, but I know they're going to improve upon what we've done too.
It is interesting to me that we say, once the millennials are in charge, but they said the same thing about us.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
I mean,
for sure.
we follow up. I mean, the greatest generation is going, and what? Dad turns 98 today that we're filming. And
happy birthday, by the way.
Yeah, we're calling him after this. But but that generation is going, and we've got boomers, and I mean, they're going to do fine. They may even
I fully
save
believe
things.
that.
Yeah, they may even
I fully
save
believe
things.
that.
Yeah. But so getting involved is just taking that step and giving your time. Now we were talking about something, and we're talking about an event coming up, and you were saying that someone's going to be there, and you said, oh, by the way, so you travel some for mission work, or tell me a little bit about that. And I know you're a faithful man, okay?
Yes. Yeah.
In the sense of Megan would case. So I know you're a faithful man there,
Yeah.
but I'm talking about. But no, I know you have a very strong faith. But tell me a little bit about that and how that's guided you through your life.
Well, I give most of the credit to everything in my life before I met Megan to my mom. And my mom would put on that ugly clip-on tie and made sure I went to church every Sunday. And that planted a seed in me that I didn't know would come to bloom when I was in my late 30s. But she was the one that was the guide. Mm-hmm. She took me there. She gave me the little collection box that you would get your offering cards out of. And then when Megan and I met and got married, we decided to join Boone United Methodist. Ken Peacock, who's the former chancellor at Appalachian, was our Sunday school teacher, as was John Thomas, the former chancellor.
Two great guys.
And two tremendous human beings. And that began to form our faith. And what I found, and when we moved here, we actually continue to worship at a Methodist church. We go to Centenary United Methodist, where I've taught Sunday school for a long time.
A friend of mine just retired from there.
Really? Mm-hmm. And we, with that, we've done a lot of mission stuff. And one of the things I wanted to share is we've actually gone to Haiti.
Right.
I've been to Haiti 7 times for medical mission stuff. Believe it or not, I can do some pharmacy work and put together prescriptions that Tom Cannon or Keith Van Zandt or Van Williamson or David Rainey wrote, who are all tremendous physicians and human beings. But one of the cool things we did through my Appalachian connection is we built basketball courts at the schools there and provided shorts and T-shirts and socks and shoes and basketballs. These folks have nothing in terms of what we would think about as PE equipment. And Angel Elderkin, who's the women's basketball coach at Appalachian, has gone down there with a couple of her coaches over the years and run clinics. And it's just been tremendous. It's opened my eyes to a lot of things. It's made me appreciate what we have here in a much broader, deeper way, and to understand the needs that we have here by looking at what it's like in a super impoverished third world country.
And then to think, and this is where it gets a little bit emotional, with Angel. Angel has her own struggles. Angel is
she's a cancer
survivor,
yeah.
and she's still taking time to go to Haiti to take care of these kids.
Yeah, it's, Angel actually won the Pat Summitt Courageous Award, which is given through women's basketball coaches in honor of Pat Summitt because of her fight with cancer. And Angel actually coached a year while she was going through chemo treatments down in the Triangle area. She's now been determined to be cancer-free, which is tremendous. But I just can't say enough about her enthusiasm, her commitment to Haiti and the people there. Unfortunately, things have been really bad the last few years politically, and it's not safe to go right now. But we're hoping as soon as we're told we can return, we'll be back.
All right, so let's get to, the worst question I'm going to ask you today is, what do you want to be remembered for? And now that could be that you retire from where you work, or you and your wife go up to Boone and live, or whatever. But what do you want to be remembered for? When I say B. Tom Lawson, what do you want people to, besides being a fanatic for Appalachian, what are some other things?
The zealot, right. My thought on that's pretty simple. I just want to be known as Geneva's son, Megan's husband, Will and Charlie's dad, and Molly's father-in-law. Much beyond that, the rest of it's gravy. And
speaking of gravy, your national fraternity just honored you for the amount of commitment that you have had over the years. You still can't believe that they did that to you.
Jimmy Barnes, who's an Appalachian trustee and fraternity
I can tell
brother.
you that we would have voted for you to get that.
Well, he was very kind to nominate me, and I got what is called the Order of Merit, which is just basically the Lifetime Service Award. And I'm so grateful and really humbled by it. And I was able to go to Scottsdale for the award ceremony. And I found out there are 390 men out of about 200,000 initiates that have gotten it. And I really am honored by it. It was a very nice thing for Jimmy to do.
Well, you deserved it. Okay. You were awesome with us. You were involved with all the fraternities in a sense too, helping Dino and them out. And you were, whether you believe it or not, I think that you were a mentor to a lot of young men. So I appreciate that. What I will, in closing, because we've talked about this a couple times, even off and on camera. What the heck happened to Winston-Salem? Is this just not the craziest thing? And what do you want to happen?
Two thoughts there. One, I'm so thankful for the elected political leadership, the corporate leadership, and the leadership of the citizens to have the vision to do here what's happened. It's truly amazing. And I'm thankful because it takes a lot of people to make that happen. As I think about the future, I'd really hope we can find a Winston-Salem that's good for everyone. I so enjoy going downtown. We went down and listened to Camel City Yacht Club, which is a cool band, by the way, 70s band, on Trade Street the other night. And as I was standing there and I saw the group of people there, I realized this can be a place that's good for everyone. And that's my vision, is that I hope we can build a Winston-Salem where everyone would say the same thing that I'm saying.
Yeah, it is quite interesting how far this city has come, but as far as we've come, we've still got a long way to go.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, we do.
So, I can't thank you enough for doing this.
Thanks, John.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. You're an awesome guy, and you just you've done a lot for our city. And so with that, I always say thanks to Jeff Smith. Of course, you know Jeff, Smitty's Notes. Smitty is our sponsor of the show in the sense of we send him the information, he puts it on his stuff, and we give him a plug and tell people to make sure to check out Smitty's Notes. Celebrating 25 years this year. That's another crazy thing. So with that, we will be back next week with more Camel City Chat. My guest today was B. Tom Lawson Jr. And we appreciate you, and have a great week.